The Dershow.
You talk about Israel being established 80 years ago. No, it was established over hundreds and hundreds of years. The first Zionists were writing in the middle of the 19th century. I have a little pin that I have here, which is 1917, the first Zionist conference in Russia. Jews have been attached to Israel from the beginning of history. It's not
no question.
It's not just that they came there, but then an event occurred, a horrible event occurred. It was called World War II, genocide, and the Holocaust. And the Holocaust had two aspects of it. One we all know about, and that is the Nazis determined to engage in an act of genocide, which is to ingather Jews from anywhere they could find them in the world, from the island of Rhodes, from anywhere else, in order to gas them and murder them and kill them and eliminate the genetic component of Jewishness. That was one part of the Holocaust we all know about. The other part, which was central to the establishment of Israel, was that no country in the world would accept Jewish refugees who were trying to escape the Holocaust. The Minister of Absorption in Canada put it very well when he said, and there's a book by this name, even one is too many. Yeah. Even one is too many. So no country, not the United States, not France, not Great Britain, not any country would accept Jews. And so is it surprising that when, after 6 million Jews are killed, and Jews, hundreds of thousands, are in camps in Europe, in Italy and in Austria, homeless. They had lost their homes all through Europe. By the way, not without some fault by Arab leaders. Hajj al-Husseini, the Arab leader of the Palestinians, spent the war years with Hitler in Berlin planning the genocide of the rest of the Jewish world, and tried very hard to build gas chambers actually in Israel. So in any event, you have a situation where the world recognizes that here's a people, an ancient people, that need a homeland, and they have a majority in areas that have never been a state before. There's never been a state in what is today Israel or Palestine. And so very logically, the Peel Commission and the United Nations says, let's do what seems sensible. Let's allow the Jews to establish a state so they can bring in people that they want to bring in on areas where they're a majority, Haifa, Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and let's leave the Arabs who are in a majority of the rest of the area alone to be the farmers, to live their lives, two separate states. They don't have to have any interaction with each other, or they could if you want them to. You might ultimately build some kind of a federation, who knows? But you can explain the Arab rejection of the Jewish state just on the ground of how so many Americans don't want immigrants to come into the country. By the way, the Americans who say that are wrong too. We should welcome immigrants with open arms, even if they change the nature of our country. Countries don't have a fixed ideology or a fixed racial component. And it
does that go for Israel too then? So
it does, yes, it does. And Israel, of course, is the most ethnically heterogeneous country in the Middle East and one of the most ethnically heterogeneous countries in the world. It has people from 50 or 60 nations. Some of its leading people today are Ethiopian Jews who are obviously black Jews. Many are Sephardic Jews. Many are Ashkenazi Jews. Many are Russians. Some come from Asian countries. And so, yes, immigration is the lifeblood of Israel. And Israel is a nation of immigrants, just like the United States is a nation of immigrants. I hope so at some point when there's peace. Right now, there's a law of return. The law of return is based, remember, as Oliver Wendell Holmes says, the life of the law is not logic, experience. Why is there a law of return? There's a law of return because no country in the world would accept a Jew. And so, of course, the first law that a Jewish state is going to establish is that we're going to accept every Jew. We're never going to say no to a Jew. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, there is immigration of non-Jews, but it's not given the same status as immigration of Jews. And I hope someday that the law of return can be abolished. If anti-Semitism around the rest of the world dissipates, let's abolish the law of return. But right now, can you imagine a worse time to abolish the law of return when there's so much anti-Semitism in Europe, so much anti-Semitism around the world? Of course the Jews need to have a special place to go. That's simply a recognition of the reality of history.
Okay, I certainly don't want to litigate the law of return. So I want to put a pin in a couple of things.
Sure.
The first, we're not going to have time to talk about it. People should Google it. You mentioned Hajj Amin al-Husseini, who had been appointed basically by the British to be the...
By a Jew.
Yes.
By a Jew named Samuels.
Yes.
Jews can be really, really stupid.
To be the head of the...
This was one who was.
Yeah, sorry. To be the head of the Arab community in Palestine.
Right.
And you're right that he spent the war in Germany. Where I would disagree with you is that transfers an iota of responsibility for the Holocaust to the Palestinians.
Wrong, because every home in Palestine had pictures of the Grand Mufti when he was spending the time in Germany.
I don't think that's true.
Well, we can argue about that, but the Grand Mufti is still a very popular leader today
not because,
among Palestinians.
I think not because of his activities during World War II. I think
that's by saying Hitler was not popular because he wanted to kill the Jews.
Hitler.
He was popular because he created employment.
Alan,
I'm not absolving Hitler.
What do you say to somebody? Yes, you are. No. You're kind of. And Benjamin Netanyahu said the same thing, that Adolf Hitler had no thought of eliminating the Jewish people until he met this Palestinian.
Don't identify that with me. Hitler wanted to kill the Jews. I've read Mein Kampf. I know all the history, and then this man joined him. He had no real impact.
Okay, but
he had no real impact.
Agreed.
But he clearly showed the mindset
of himself,
of the leadership, the man who was the leader of the Palestinian movement at the time, joining with Hitler. But that's not the important point. The important point is that there was a problem. And the world, the international community, solved the problem in a reasonable manner, requiring both sides to compromise. Do you know the debate that occurred over the Peel Commission report and the UN division within the Israelis, within the Jewish community? Most of them were opposed to it. They said, we don't want this little sliver of land, but we'll take it.